You're my first person I've done Zoom with. So I've not done it. You've broken me in here. So,
well, you know what? You're the first guest speaker too. And we all know who you are. We all love you. You're our first honorary Willow Winder. And we take that seriously. And you have helped us all so much. And I think it's going to be very fascinating for you and I, Chris, to figure out how we can talk for only a half an hour.
yeah.
We've had ourselves a marathon.
Giving me half an hour? I thought you were giving me 20 minutes. I thought, oh boy, this is going to be fun.
I don't know how we'll edit ourselves. But, you know, it's 6 o'clock now. We're all here. I'm sure Judith and Ralph will be coming, and we will deal with that then. So if we could all, except for Chris and myself, mute yourselves so that we can hear Chris without our beeping in and out. See, what good students. I love you guys. Okay, well, we've got 3 topics I'd love to cover.
All right.
And I figure the first one is we're all familiar with, and as I told you, I love the look on people's faces when they saw your metronome work. So you all know she's done another one that somebody sent her, sort of a challenge, and it's beautiful, and I'll share that with you as soon as we can get to that. But Chris, why don't you speak to us about the metronome, which is a wonderful tool, and what you do with it is amazing. It's light years away from what we're doing, but it does inspire.
But you got to start somewhere. So maybe I scared you with some of that. Okay. First of all, who hates it? Who hates me for introducing the metronome? No? You guys are okay? All right. I think you're being nice to me. But most people have a love or a hate relationship with the metronome. I initially hated it for years and years and years. I ended up with a teacher who was really, really good, and she kept saying, so did you play that with the metronome yet? And I went, no. Next week, do you work with the metronome yet? No. So she kept saying that enough that finally I actually sat down. I had to admit that even though I'd been playing for, several years, I didn't know how to work with it. So you're trying to learn the flute, you don't want to learn the metronome too. So if you don't want to do it right now, that's entirely up to you. I'm hoping today that I can give you just a couple of things to get you started, maybe a little, baby steps, getting going with the metronome. One thing that you can do is just take 2 notes. 2 notes just to get the feel for it. So I'm going to turn it on. You hear that?
Yeah.
And I'm just going to work on 2 notes. And then what will eventually happen if you start doing that long enough, your brain is going to turn off. It's sort of like when you do meditation. And then all of a sudden you get your grocery list going on and the things that you need to get done. So then you have to come back. This is your breath. This is what you need to come back to. Okay. So I'm playing 1 note per click. And once that's feeling really comfortable with you, try and do 2 notes per click. Okay, so I played each note twice. And then play each note once, but 2 notes per click. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then you want to go to 4 notes.
This is where Sharon and I will start having fun with the metronome, right, Sharon?
And that's a very easy one to do. And I'm only moving 1 finger. I had 4 fingers down and 5 fingers down. And that's all I was doing. Okay. And then that was with the metronome at 76. Pick a number. Pick a number over 100.
Go ahead. It's your pick.
Pick a number.
110.
101.
110? I don't have 110 on here. I'll do 112.
120.
So you just increase the metronome. When I practice, I do it like one click at a time and really do it slowly. If you were to spend 5 minutes out of your day, I get it, you guys, you've just come home from work, you don't really want to do this kind of focus practice, but if you can do anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes of just that, your finger coordination is going to improve. You know, take just 2 notes today, take 2 different notes tomorrow, and work on it that way. That's a really easy way to work on it. And then eventually when all of your, I don't know how advanced all of you guys are. You know, if you guys know your scale, then it's just, I'll turn it back down here. It's actually harder to play really slow.
Yes, it is. And so, Chris, this helps them out with their fingering, their pacing themselves, and
Fingering, pacing yourself. It helps you with your breathing too, because now you got to time your breathing in. And I hear so many beginner players where I'm going to say their breath is slow. Okay. It's not in time with their hands, and it just needs to speed through the flute a little bit more. Does that make sense?
makes sense to me. Everybody thumbs up on that one?
Not really sure. Makes sense.
And you know, Chris, if I do have questions, which I hope, you know, I see people taking notes as well as myself, questions, you know, after this or next week when we get together or whatever, I will compile them all together and you and I can sort them out and I'll get the answers back to them.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sounds good. So that's a simple way to work with the metronome. And if we get more than that today, you know, I think that's probably enough for one day.
Okay.
Is that all you want to do with that?
That
Because I
sounds-
can go off for a long time.
I know. Yeah.
So
No,
it's either
I'm-
stop me now or, you know.
Or off we go. I will make sure that they see your metronome work from your friend Jamie, because that
Yeah.
really is a beautiful practice. That other one was like a marathon amazement. You are the ruling queen of the metronome. But when I saw that one too, I think if they get both of them, they'll see how it actually can be just a really nice way to make sure your song's going along. Because that really was beautiful what she gave you for a challenge.
Yeah, she did a good job on that. I should mention too that you don't want to be in a place where you're using your metronome constantly with every song. Nobody wants to see a performer go on stage and have their metronome. This is just a tool to help you with your fingers and later with more complicated rhythms, with your counting, with your breathing. It helps you with a number of things. But you don't want to be stuck with a metronome. And in fact, my songs, most of my songs, you guys know Vermont Morning, we'll use that as my example. You can't do this. You can't do this with Vermont Morning. There is no pulse. You can't clap to it. You cannot dance to it. Did that intentionally because we are so regimented in our daily lives. We're timed. Everything in life is timed. So I intentionally wrote most of my music without timing so that it's for meditation and it will help to free your brain. And that's what I think these instruments are fabulous for.
Yeah. And that ties right in with tablature too, because that can get people regimented, and metronome or too much tablature can also make you sound what I call my definition of canned music. It no longer has that free feeling. And I play a lot of improv. You write your own music, you use tablature, and the other day we had that wonderful discussion about improv, and then there was one of your improvs, and it's like, okay, I need the sheet music for that. So I think the tablature and feelings on tablature and the improv would be great.
there's, okay. So where do you want me to go with this? Just
Talk
my
about
thoughts
how
on-
you use tablature, the importance of tablature, overuse of
Okay.
tablature, reading tablature backwards, forwards, and upside down.
Reading it backwards is a blast. I used to do that with my students all the time. So I'm so happy that you said that you do that. It's a great way to train your eyes.
Yes.
I unfortunately read music so much that I struggle to play without music. So when I went into the recording studio, I had to write all of my own music down. My own music. I can't play from memory. But my reading skills are such that when I read it, Helen, you mentioned it didn't sound like I was playing with music. So that was a huge compliment, because that's, you can have music, but make it sound musical. Okay. You know, I read it, I use my written music as a guide. I don't play it the same way twice. It's like, yeah, I'm going to play that one a little bit longer today, and I'm going to shorten that up. I'm going to put a trill here, and, or, you know, I don't consciously make these decisions. It's just as I'm going, that's how it feels. And that's what I do on that particular day. But I need it there as a guide. One day I hope to overcome that and be able to play without music. And I can do improv. I can sit there and just make stuff up on the spot. But when it comes to the recorded music, when I go into recording studio, I have my music written out so that I can talk to the people that are doing the recording, and I can say, you know, that spot didn't sound good. I want to go and redo that. And they can say to me, hey, yeah, this part here sounded fantastic. Can you do that for, like, you know, the rest of the piece? And I'm like,
Yeah, I would imagine for recording, because that's what you and I were talking about the other day. Because I want to do my recording and I want it to be improv, and then we were talking about how they can splice things together, or you can go back and work on something, and that's difficult if you're doing improv. It doesn't work that way.
No.
Oh.
And I had a specific way that I wanted. I wasn't rigid about how I wanted my songs to sound, but I had an idea of the direction I wanted them to go.
Yeah.
And it took, you know, anywhere from 2 to 4 tries on most songs to get them the way that I wanted to. You know, all of the other takes would have been just fine too. If I played them live in a concert, we would have been, you know, thought it was fine. But to my ear, there was a couple of things that needed fixing. So I went back and redid them.
Well, at some point, because we are having you back for flute topics and, you know, as guest speaker for other classes, and I'll share the videos with you all on that. I'd love to delve into recording at some point, because there is so much to it.
There is an awful lot to recording. Yeah.
So when you go to write a song, how does that come about? Because I think that all goes with the tab and the improv, and we could finish up this whole thing, because I could listen to you forever, as I believe everybody could, about composing, because we all come to it as in a different way. There's different ways of seeing it.
Yeah, and you know, I don't think there's any big secret and any big mystery, and I don't think you have to study music theory for years on end. I think the minute you pick up an instrument and you start playing, you're composing.
Yeah.
I really do. But there are some days where I play stuff and it's like, that just sounds like gobbledygook. You know, it just doesn't sound.
Who's had a day like that, everybody?
Hey, we all have our gobbledygook days, right? And some days when I have that, I'll go for a bike ride, and then I'll play somebody else's music, or I'll play some of my old stuff. And on days when I really have a lot of gobbledygook going on, that's when I go to things like studies, because then I can just sit down and I can just work on technique. And then sometimes that's what's causing the gobbledygook, is maybe there's a problem with your technique somewhere. Certain notes that you want to play aren't coming out smoothly. So I spend some time working on some technique, and then I don't worry about it. And then the next day I pick it up, and sometimes I'll do a meditation, and I'll have my flute in my lap, and I'll just do a meditation, and I'll just say, okay, what do you want to say? And in fact, there's a song on Home, on the Home, it's called What Do I Say? And that's exactly why it has that title, is because I was asking my flute, what do you want to say today?
That's a lovely CD, and as everybody knows, we have your CDs at the store. They're lovely, Chris. They're just so lovely, and congratulations on all the awards and acknowledgments that you have been getting on One World Radio and beyond.
Thank you.
For your CDs. They're lovely.
It's crazy. Who knew?
Matter of fact, I met up with Ralph and Judith the other day. We did some fluting and some pickleball, at any rate. And they were listening to you on the way there. And it just, you know, I was happy for them. And I was happy for me. I was happy for you because it's like this whole circle that comes around. And, you know, now meeting you, I think it makes it even more special.
This is cool what the internet can do and the people that we can meet and connect at. I'm sitting in this little tiny town in my basement in LaSalle. There's what, 20,000 people in this town. Now Windsor, which is right next to us, has like almost 300,000, and we're across from Detroit. So, but I'm able to connect with people who, the amount of people in this area that actually like what I do, it's kind of limited. You know, but when you put it on the world stage and to have somebody like you, you know, to connect with me and say, hey, you know, I really like your stuff and can you join in a class and let me sell your CDs? It's really nice to see what's going on out there. And the flute community, the Native American Style Flute community is just
Very loving community.
it's a very
I've been in,
kind community. It's great.
right. I've been in 3 other big communities, the horses, the yoga, and this, and I've never found such an open hands across, not hand up, hand down, you know,
Yeah.
hands across from everybody. Everybody's accessible. And
Yeah.
the thing about you coming on now too is we're all getting zoomed out. We've spent this a good portion on our Zoom lessons because of COVID. So this is breaking it up, and I think it's really great. Now, when you do sit down and you go to compose, one thing I found interesting, and 2 of my students in particular, where, you know, I always start the lesson, well, how was your week with your flute? And we're all adults, they're honest and like, yeah, I couldn't get to it this week, you know, too much was going on, family, whatever.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was also okay because for these 2 people, they took the break, and Joyce is in a couple of my classes, so she knows who I'm speaking of. And Sharon would know one of the people too. And it was amazing, that little bit of a break for them, for whatever reason they needed, they came in back and they were playing fresh and beautiful and in a way they hadn't played before. So it's a real funny balance of listening to yourself and your flute.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. When I taught, I used to teach silver flute and guitar many years ago. And I would tell the students, number one, the best time to practice is right after a lesson. So after Zoom class tonight, this is the best time to go over anything that Helen has talked to you about, because that's going to stick in your brain. Even if you can't get to your flute any other time this week, tonight is the night that if you can spend that little time, things are going to really stick. And then whenever you can, go over some of the other things that Helen has talked about during the week, and then take one day when you don't play at all. Just don't play, go out in nature, go out and do whatever you want to do, and don't feel guilty about not playing. It's like Shavasana for those of us that do yoga. It's that time of the class where you need to just lay there and be still and allow all those music notes to just settle in your brain and in your body and in your hands. So give yourself some flute Shavasana.
That is a very nice way of putting it, Chris. I like that.
It is okay to take a day off.
Right.
You know?
You know, that's the thing, when you're learning something, people do tend to feel guilty or pressured. And that might work for a guitar or something, but it doesn't work with the flute. The flute's just too intimate, and it's your breath into your hand and back around in a circle, and you go messing with that and putting a pressure on it, and it falls apart.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So give yourself some space, and give yourself a day to not do anything that Helen said.
Yes. It is
Just
always
pick
good
it
to
up.
take a day
Can I,
and
can I
not
have 2 of those?
Want to do.
Oh, that's good. Now, Chris is lucky because she and her husband, I don't know if this video is on your website or not, but the 2 of you doing Take Me Out to the Ball game.
Yeah, I can't find it. I don't know where I put that.
I do at some
It's got to
point
be
want-
around somewhere.
I do at some point want to find that and share it with this group. And even though it's not all flute, because we all work together and do duets. Is it a classic definition of duet? No, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it falls apart. Sometimes it's absolutely magic. And some of us can get into that space quicker than others together. And like Judith and I, a lot of times Jim and I, because we live together, we're really in sync sometimes, and it's just really wonderful. Yet Judith and I hadn't seen each other for a while, and when we went the other day, just raise your hand, Judith, I felt we were sort of rusty. So we took green sleeves, some sheet music,
Okay.
and we played it and got our timing down, and yeah. And then, of course, we're kind of frisky people. So we ended up totally messing with green sleeves and putting trills in, all kinds of craziness to sort of bring that back around. But it is funny how it comes together and falls apart. But you and your husband, that was such a nice example of two different instruments playing in sync, plus you two had a blast doing it.
We did. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah. So if and when you do find that, I'd love to share that if that's okay with you with the class.
Yeah. Let me remind me to find that. So I went to
I
look
will
for
write
it.
it
I don't know
down.
where it went.
Okay. The other thing is Chris has just put up another study that I think you'll find real interesting. I had about 5 seconds to play with it before we did tonight, so I can't really speak on it, but can you speak about your studies and how those are useful?
I came from a classical background. Not that that's good, bad, or ugly. It's just what I came from. So we do a lot of studies, and studies can make your life stale because you get so locked into them, but they are also useful for working on certain skills. So I usually write a study for myself because, you know, if I'm playing my silver flute and I'm coming up with something that's difficult to do, I can find a study that will help me over a certain problem. There's nothing like that written for these flutes.
No.
So if I want to work on a certain issue, I got to write it myself. And sometimes I don't want to write it myself. So I do, but I thought, you know what, for my studies are aimed at beginning players who might not know what else they can do and how they can stretch this instrument. So if I've written a study, probably there's quite a likely chance that I've had an issue with whatever is in that study. The one that just came out is on articulation, which is using your tongue to push the air out. So when you've got a note that repeats itself several times, you don't hear a wah, wah, wah. You know, you don't hear it like a blob. You make a clear, distinct note. It's like when somebody is speaking, you've got your diction, right? You don't want to listen to somebody who mumbles. You want somebody who can speak clearly. It's the same with articulation. So some days you get tired of your tongue just doesn't want to work for you. So I thought, you know, I should do some work on this articulation. So that's what that study's for, but that's conversation for another day. That's not on our list of topics, Helen.
No, it's not, but you know, we've got the time. And the thing is, when it came to your study, and I'm sort of pushing it so these guys work on it for next week too, is, you know, none of us here are total beginners.
Okay.
I find your studies just useful, you know, because I have my hand issues and they're very massaging, just like Vermont Morning. For me, the way that you go and where you go with those, actually, I use them for my hand warm-ups as well.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Physically,
Very cool.
I know you love my yogic musician videos and you put them on your site. I find that that's what I use is you to warm me up on the flute.
Ah, and I use you. Well, there you go.
There you go.
You just never know what's going to happen, eh?
No. How many songs do you compose at a time? Do you sit down, do a lot, or it depends on where it's going on at the moment, or you take parts and eventually you put it with another part? How's that process for you?
Some days it's just like, you know, I haven't written a song in a while. So then I just sit down and I see what I can come up with. I have no strict way of writing. Currently, I'm trying to learn how to do sound recording, so I'm not doing any writing right now, but I did write one song at least during COVID. And I've also downloaded a bunch of songs from other people, from Jan, from Johnny. I also play a lot of songs by Mary Youngblood.
Yes.
So she's fantastic. She's like, she's amazing. So by playing songs from other people, I learn a few different tricks. And then when I focus on that, then when I'm ready to let that go, then I move on and I start writing my own stuff. Ideas just get inspired by other people, and off I go. When you, like for me, the writing process, if I'm getting ready to put out another CD, I will spend that a whole year prior to that writing music. And then you go through the recording process, which depending on when you can get into the studio can take a little longer than you wanted it to. So the whole writing and recording process for me can take 1 to 2 years. So right now I'm kind of like, you know, I'm a little tired of this music. I want to play something else. So that's why I'm playing other people's music. I did write a song not too long ago. I can maybe play a bit of it for you. It's one of my new ones. Right now, or
sure, that'd be great.
Hang on, I have to find the music. I'm not lying. All right,
you're awesome.
So maybe
What's the name of the song you're gonna play? What's the name?
This one is called Ice Dance. There we go. I haven't played
Does
it.
that have anything to do with your hailstorm?
No, it doesn't. Actually, this one sounds really pretty to me. This reminds me of a couple dancing, like skating together, like down like the Rideau. Anybody from Ottawa familiar with the Rideau Canal in Ottawa?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a pretty common place. I can just see a couple going hand in hand and skating down the ice. And I am not a very good skater. I love watching figure skating. And my dream in life is to have some national figure skaters skate to one of my songs in the Olympics.
I think that's awesome.
So that's one of my dreams. So I'm not quite set up here, but we'll see how it goes. I screwed up. And then it goes on a little bit longer than that. I don't want to take it. You hear that okay? I don't know.
I heard it okay because we're all muted and tonight the Zoom gods are with us. I grew up with a girl who went to the nationals with figure skating, and actually what you just did was took me back to watching her at ungodly hours. We all had horses, but we would go to the rink before the horses. So I mean, this is way before the sun comes up, and freeze to watch her practice. And I just had this most wonderful time down memory lane. I want to thank you for that. And music does that, you know?
It does. It does.
Connects everybody.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
So I just want to thank you very much for this, Chris. It just was wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be able to be to participate in this.
Well, we want to have you back. I know my folks, they're going to want you back. And I'm really looking forward to doing the flute topics program with you and sorting that all out as I go forward. I think that'll be fun.
Definitely looking forward to that. Thank you so much for having me and for all that you do for, you know, getting people started playing this instrument. And it's awesome. This is great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.